Hi there, this is Heather of Shutterbug 101. Today we're going over the Nikon Zf camera. Let's get started. The Nikon Zf is a 24.5 megapixel full-frame mirrorless camera that has 5-axis in-body stabilization, 273 focus points, and a fully articulating touch LCD screen. It has a continuous drive of 7.8 frames per second, shoots 4K video up to 60 frames, has a microphone and headphone port, and is weather sealed. This camera is perfect for someone who needs something more than a high-end hobby camera but keeps it more simple than the Z9. Today we will be going over the buttons, dials, and menus to help you navigate this camera a little easier. Hi there! So you may have noticed that we're doing the walkthroughs a little bit differently right now. So instead of me doing just a view and a video of going through the camera itself, we're going to go ahead and do it a little bit differently like this. So I have captured the images of each menu page, and we're going to go ahead and discuss it. It's just it's like my videos, it's just pictures and it's me discussing it like this so you can see me talking. Also notice the new background logo here. The board behind it is going to have a new holographic-ish like blue to green purplish background to that be put on soon, so that's kind of neat. So dig the new background, pretty awesome. Also, before jumping into this, just a reminder that if you want a one-on-one session to go over your Nikon Zf camera or another camera that you have, where you can ask questions as I'm going through it, like, hey, can you elaborate more on that? Or in what instance would I use this? Or having a discussion of how it personally tailors to what you like to do, you can go ahead and contact me over here at my Instagram page, or you can find my email on my contacts on my YouTube homepage as well. But let's go ahead and get started. So this is the front of the Nikon Zf camera. Not a lot going on here. Actually, you see the branding, you see what model camera it is. You also have the lens cap, or not lens cap, but the body cap there. And behind that body cap is that full frame sensor. Now, it's as with every mirrorless camera, you want to be sure that you are hypersensitive around, or hyper careful anyway, around that sensor. Make sure that if this camera does not have a lens on it, it does have that body cap on. It doesn't just get thrown in a bag or sat out or anything with any protection on the front of that camera, because not only can that result in damage to your sensor, but it can result in a dirty sensor, which is a pain in the butt to clean, especially if you try by yourself, which I do not recommend if you are not very well versed in cleaning sensors. Now, the button that you see here on our right is going to be your lens release. So you hold that button down, turn the lens. That allows you to change out lenses as you need, as needed. And this up here is actually going to be a shortcut button, which I believe you can also use as a frontal focus. You can pretty much tell it what you want to do. Again, that's, like I said on a bunch of videos, you can, all of these cameras are very highly customizable. So a lot of these buttons, except for like the lens release button where it has like a physical change, or like your shutter button, you can pretty much change to do whatever you want. So that's kind of a nice benefit there. If you holding the camera, so it's up to your eye on the left side of the camera, you have all of your doors for your ports. So we have one port that shows a USB symbol, which has a USB-C port. This is mainly for transferring files. I believe you can also use this for tethering in some programs. You also have on the bottom door there, you have your headphone port, your HDMI port, which is a HDMI micro cable, and your mic port for an external microphone, which is always recommended if you were really getting into video. Other side of the camera, so right side of the camera when you're holding it up to your face, doesn't have anything on it. Nice and simple. You have the other side where, of course, you can attach your camera strap to, which is on this side as well, up at the top. And yeah, that's it on this side of the camera. Bottom of the camera, you have your battery door, which of course houses the battery and your SD card. This does take an SD. Oh, it takes a micro too. Why does it do that? It takes a UHS 2 card. It also takes a micro SD, which this is actually the first mirrorless interchangeable lens camera that I've really seen, I think, that has a micro SD option built inside of it, which is really incredibly interesting. Definitely a different approach when it comes to adding 2 card slots, but I guess it does save some room in its more compact design. You also have directions on the door itself, which direction to put in the battery, which it only does go one way, and the same for the cards as well, which direction you put the cards into those slots. And right behind that door, where it's opened there, you do have a screw hole for a tripod mount. So you have that as well. The top of the camera is definitely going to be the start of more of a complex design. So here we're seeing very similar to the ZF, I believe it was the ZFC that had the kind of the film overlay like Fujifilm does, or like the old Nikon film cameras. So here you have it broken down in a different way than you would typically have your mode dial on other Nikon mirrorless cameras, where you would have your auto, your P, your A, S, and M modes. Here it's broken down so you have your ISO, what used to be ASA, film sensitivity, light sensitivity to light. So you still have your P, S, A, and M modes on a dial if you were like, I don't know if I want to play so much with these, or you could tell it I'm going to change the shutter speed, and you could change your shutter speed dial, which of course is going to be right over here. So here, of course, we have our ISO. You do your custom. We have the switch here, which would enable you to change it from auto mode to program, shutter speed, priority, aperture priority, and manual, which would allow you to have free reign of the shutter speed switch here, as well as adjusting the aperture through that second ring on a lot of the Z lenses. Here, of course, like I said, you have your shutter speed dial where you can change your shutter speed. Now, if you have this dial switched to aperture priority, this is really not going to matter. At least it shouldn't, because you're in that aperture priority, letting the camera figure out the shutter speed. So you have to definitely be careful on making sure you pay attention to what mode you have these on. You have your on and off switch here, which is just your toggle back and forth, your shutter button. We have the red button, which is your red record button for video. Press once to start recording, press again to stop recording. We do have a small window here on top of the camera, and that of course is going to be for your aperture, to display which aperture you do have it set to. And then you have your exposure dial here as well. On the back of the camera, we do have our digital viewfinder with our sensor here to detect when it's brought up to our face. We do have the playback button, which allows us to look back at our pictures, the trash can button to throw some of those pictures away. We have our diopter here, which changes the focus in the viewfinder, so we can easily be able to, well, adjust it for our own eyes. Oh, and I forgot to show you guys this up here because you couldn't really see it from the top, but below that shutter speed dial, you do have a switch here to switch it from like photo mode to video mode accordingly. We have the auto exposure lock and auto focus lock button back here. We have another adjustment wheel, which I believe can be used to do your aperture mode as well. Your I button, which is going to be for your quick menu on the back of the camera. We have the directional pad as well as the conformational OK button. The magnifying glass with the plus and the magnifying glass with the minus to zoom in and zoom out of pictures that you've already taken. You have your display button that displays what options you have on the screen or through the viewfinder. If you want it less or more busy, seeing what the camera is set to on the screen or through the viewfinder. And then of course you have your menu button, which allows us to change everything in the menu. It does have a articulating screen, which is awesome, as well as it being touchscreen like most of the LCDs these days. And then here you can see with the screen on, one of the more basic display modes. You can see what mode it's set to up at the top left. At this point, it's set to aperture priority. You have what the drive mode is, some single shot, manual focus because it can't detect a lens, what the white balance is set to, what size pictures it's taking, if it's set to full frame or to crop, being a DX. If you want it to be touch shutter, if you want to touch the screen and take a picture, where its metering mode is, where its focusing mode is, its battery level, your ISO, and if you had a lens attached, it'd tell you, or even a card in there, it would tell you how many pictures you have left and what the aperture is. You have a lot that you can display on screen. And this is a example of the quick menu, or again, this I button. So out of the box, you have this is kind of like a filter mode of how it displays colors. You can have it like on auto, landscape, portrait, that kind of thing, where it changes the different color dynamics. You have your drive mode here in this square, which is going to be what it does when you hit that shutter button, whether it takes a single photo, multiple photos. I believe that's where your timer is as well. You have your white balance mode here in the second top box. That's going to be your how warm or cool you would like the photo, but automatic typically works just fine. You have your stabilization in this box here, your quality. So typically in JPEG you want it to be on like fine. I don't believe this will be grayed out if you're just shooting in RAW, which of course you can change in this box here if you want to do JPEG RAW or RAW and JPEG. We have the metering mode here, what you want it metering if you want to do evaluative, considering the whole image, if you want it more in the center, or if you want to pick where it meters, which is more spot metering using that auto exposure lock button. You have the focusing area, so if you would like it to center focus, kind of a wide area autofocus, zone focus, any of those. If you want airplane mode on or off, what kind of focus mode you want, so manual focus, so autofocus single, autofocus continuous, or autofocus auto, or flexible depending on the camera. And then like what card you want like it to be primarily focused on, or what card you want to use for what, you can actually change by clicking this box here, which is really nice. And you can change all of these options. Like I said, these cameras are highly customizable. So in the menu, you could change if you're like, oh, I don't touch my white balance, I'm going to change that to something else. Then you. So now we're going to kind of go through the menu here. Now I'm going to kind of breeze through here on the most important parts, kind of stop and explain the ones that really need to be explained, especially for beginners. Otherwise, if you want a more in-depth dive to the Nikon menus, you can go ahead and visit my Nikon menu walkthrough, which I just posted a few weeks ago, which I will put a link at the top of the video here if you'd like to go and refer to that directly, which is, to me, it's a very grueling, detailed video, like reading the manual, but it's what you guys asked for, so you can go ahead and click on that. But before I dive too quickly into that, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys this awesome backpack. Hi there. When you're a photographer, if there's anything that you have plenty of to accompany your cameras and lenses, it's camera bags. If you're a new photographer, give yourself some time. You'll soon find that you'll have a collection of your own. And why do we have so many bags? It's for every occasion, for every shoot that we could ever go on. For example, I have my wandered bag here for any heavy travel. I have my donkey bag for any casual day use. My ProMaster bag for any heavier casual day use. I have my tactical bag for any city use or even weddings. It's a little bit more, it's black, slim, formal. But now I have my K&F Concepts 20-liter bag for all of my all-day casual adventures, you know, something that's not obviously a camera bag. This bag comes in fun colors like green, orange, blue, and they still have the basic black if that works best for you. It's made from rain-repellent nylon and has waterproof leather bottom. It's not super bulky and it's easily accessible from the side with extra battery and card storage, and open storage on the top for my other must-bring items. You can set in all your gear from the back, which I love, and move the dividers around as needed. With the side pockets perfect for a water bottle or tripod, I can easily carry what I need for an all-day adventure without feeling like I'm traveling cross-country. So check out K&F Concepts today. If not to add another bag to your collection, then maybe some other accessories to help your passion soar. You can use this promo code to save off your purchase today. All right, now that we're back from that, showing you a backpack, okay. We're gonna go ahead and go through the menu here. So this top tab, so you have different menus in your menu. This is something that's really in-depth, has a lot. The whole point of your quick menu, that I button, is so you don't have to dig through all of these. But they are here. So hopefully you don't have to dig through them too often. But that's also what this last tab's for, to help you out, which we'll go through last. So the first tab that we go through is the photo shooting menu. At the start of this, you have reset photo shooting menu. They put it right up at the top. If say you're going through your menu, you've done something funny, now the camera is doing something funny. To just be safe, you can reset the photo shooting menu back to default. And hopefully that fixes the problem, because sometimes you're like, I don't know what I hit something and now it's doing something weird. You can always reset each menu here. You can change your storage folder. You can change how it names its files, although for Nikon, DSC is pretty standard. You have your primary slot, SD card slot selection, so where you want your primary cards to go to, and then what you want the secondary slot function, what you want that to do, if you want that to be like an emergency backup, to take JPEGs, you know, whatever you want that to do. Seeing as how, well, and then depending on what it is, like for a micro SD, I would, if anything, make that like an emergency backup or for your JPEGs. And then for your main SD card, I make that for like RAW and video. Image area is really going to cover, I believe that's the FX or DX, which is full frame or crop sensor, which is an option in Nikon cameras. So if you want to use a crop sensor lens, you are cropping in on that sensor and 1.5 times the quality. So do keep that in mind. You have your tone mode. Again, that's something to do with like tonality, the color. You have Image quality, that's going to be like the quality of your JPEG. I would put fine as your JPEG. Image size settings, that's going to be like RAW or JPEG. You have raw recording. Yeah, I mean, if you'd like it to record the raw information, then you would have that on. ISO sensitivity settings. That's mainly going to be when you have this ISO dial in auto, how sensitive you would like it to be at its max and its minimum, and it'll only work between those two modes, which is a really handy tool to use. White balance, that's also in your quick mode. That's how warm or cool the photos are. Set picture control, that's, again, those filters, that landscape, automatic, portrait, like how vivid you want those colors to come out by it basically selecting a pre-done filter. You have manage picture control, so that kind of, I think you can like micro adjust some of these picture controls that are pre-done in the camera. Set picture control HLG. So you have set picture control HLG, which is a hybrid log gamma, which is just HDR but more advanced. So they're starting to introduce some of these things into the camera that I'm actually starting to learn. So I have to apologize on that. You know, that one right there. I am actually not super versed in HLG quite yet. That is something that's new to me. So if you want to know more about that, let me know. I will definitely do my homework and reach out to my contacts. Color space. You definitely want to keep this on sRGB. I'm someone that does work with Adobe, and that is an option on here, but sRGB is pretty universal. So just keep that on sRGB unless you're like, you have printers that are coded to Adobe RGB, that kind of thing. Active D lighting, that's going to basically be active dynamic lighting. It's going to look for those highlights and shadows and find that balance for you. Long exposure noise reduction, I've learned that that can actually be super helpful in times where you're in an extremely dark area trying to take a picture, like of, I don't know, northern lights in the middle of nowhere in Alaska. So that could be really helpful there. Otherwise, if you're just doing like inner city photos where there's still quite a bit of light or moonlight, that kind of thing, probably not super necessary to have, but it's nice that it's there. It just takes a little bit longer to be able to take the next photo when it comes to doing a long exposure. You have high ISO noise reduction, same. So it basically goes through the picture in camera and tries to get rid of any of that noise by using a high ISO, which does happen naturally, and it's kind of nice that it has the technology to help bring that down quite a bit. Now it's not gonna be completely it's not going to be completely gone. There's only so much a camera can do, but they've gotten pretty advanced going through it so far. Vignette control, so if you want it to avoid casting a vignette on your photos, especially if you're using like a lens hood, that is what that is for. Diffraction compensation. Again, in camera, diffraction can happen when like light hits the camera. You get like almost sunspots where it tries to combat that. You also have auto distortion control, so if you're taking a picture up at a building, it almost looks like it's falling over or it's kind of bending out or in from the circular way that the lenses are. It can help try and correct that as well. Skin softening, so it has that built into the camera now, which is really neat. Portrait impression balance. So portrait impression balance allows users to adjust the hue and brightness of a portrait skin tone while taking the photo. Like, there's almost, Nikon has always had a lot of like in-camera editing tools. Like in camera, not like, oh, use our application. No, like in-camera editing. And to me, that's just like It's handy, don't get me wrong. I just rather do my stuff on a computer. But if you're the type of person that likes to do everything in camera, okay. I mean, it's all there for you. There you go. You have photo flicker reduction, which tries to combat any frequencies that like fluorescence put out to try and prevent any of that flicker or pattern happening onto the photos. Metering, you change your metering mode where it's taking that light from. Flash control, now this camera does not have a built-in flash, so if you have a external flash on that hot shoe that's on top of the camera, you can have some control over that. Flash mode, on, off, you know, that type of thing. Flash compensation, so basically your exposure mode for your flash. Release mode, that's going to be your drive mode, single photo, continuous photos, timer. Focus mode, if you want it to autofocus single, focusing on a single subject, not moving. Autofocus continuous, continually focusing as the subject moves. Or auto, for it to depict between the two, or manual focus. Then you have autofocus area mode, where it's focusing. 3D, it's kind of like if the person steps behind something and then steps out. Like, some of these focusing modes are so smart, where it's like, oh, if its eye focus is turned on and the person turns around and loses the eye and turns back, it knows exactly where that eye is. Like, it doesn't lose track. It's actually incredible, especially with Nikon. Like, their focusing is just insane. You have your autofocus, manual focus, subject detection options. So again, like you have face, you have eyes. I believe you can have animal versus human. Manual focus subject detection area. So it's letting you know where you're manual focusing, which I think that you'd want that on to kind of have a little bit of a cheat, because it's hard to tell sometimes with a small screen. You have vibration reduction, stabilization. Link vibration reduction to focus point. You have auto bracketing if you would like it to bracket your photos, making it a little bit lighter, a little bit darker, right in the middle, and your bracketing options there. You have multiple exposure, so if you want to take multiple photos and layer them on top of each other, you can do that in camera. HDR overlay, if you'd like it to show an overlay for high dynamic range, and show you that option there. Interval timer shooting, that one's always a fun one to do, as well as time-lapse video. Like, all these are built into the camera. Focus shift shooting, pixel shift shooting. Like, wow. I mean, if you're like a high-end hobbyist, like, you want to be able to just do everything in camera, this is the camera to do it. And then we go into our next tab, our next menu, which of course is video recording menu. Now, a lot of the same options for the photo shooting menu are in the video recording menu, just for video. So again, up at the top, you can reset. You have your storage folder, file naming, the destination you'd like your photos to go to, which SD card, your video file type. So if you want it to be HD, 4K, you have your frame size and frame rate. So if you want it to be 30 frames, 60 frames a second, your image area. So again, your like FX versus DX. You have your ISO sensitivity settings, which again, in that auto mode is kind of the max and minimum that you want it to work between for moving from scene to scene. Your white balance, the warmth or coolness of your video. Picture control you can also use on video, as well as managing it. The HLG quality, again, that more advanced version of HDR. Active D lighting, again, that's really great to have on, especially if you're working from scene to scene. You have high ISO noise reduction, vignette control, all of those same fancy things that you saw for the photo shooting, the metering, focus mode, autofocus area mode. Yeah, so like autofocus, manual focus, subject detection options. Again, that's person, animal, switching back and forth between that. Let's see, electronic vibration reduction. So adding a little bit more of stabilization options for video. Microphone sensitivity. Now, this is something you should definitely get into when you're first opening the camera and testing that out, because more commonly than not is that microphone sensitivity is usually too sensitive, especially if you're using an external mic and trying to tone down that sensitivity. Usually it has to be toned down. So definitely try that out. Make sure it's working for what you need it for if you're going to be using it for any video. Now, this is something that I actually haven't seen in the other Nikon cameras, the attenuator. It's a feature that reduces microphone gain and prevents audio distortion when recording video in loud environments. That's awesome. It's more of those built in the camera, one-stop shop tools that makes this camera a one-stop shop. That's pretty cool, honestly. You have your frequency response, your wind noise reduction, mic jack plug and power. Like, the more that I go through this camera, because it's actually been a couple months since I played with it, I'm reminded just how incredible this is and how much of a value it adds to the Nikon Z line. Definitely don't discount this camera. You also have headphone volume, your time code, as well as external recording control, like via HDMI if you were outsourcing it. Then in the next tab, you have your custom settings menu. So this, of course, is to control all of your custom options. And of course, up at the top, you have reset custom settings. Then in the next one, you have changing all of your focus. So this gets like really broken down. So you'll have to forgive me that I'm not going into this in depth. But again, if you want to go through this more in depth, you can check out the Nikon menu walkthrough specifically. So the AFC and AFS priority selection, you can choose whether it prioritizes focus or taking the picture, whether or not it's in focus or if it needs to take the time to focus. So that's what that is all about. You have your focus tracking with lock on, focus points used, like if you want to use all of them or a specified amount, store points by orientation, autofocus activation, focus point persistence. You have limit autofocus area mode selection, focus point wraparound. So if you want it to, like, say you have your box here, you want it to, like, you're moving your focus point over, if you just want it to stop at that wall that it's at, or if you want it to be like Pac-Man and just like keep moving to the other side, if you keep hitting right, it just peers off at the left. You can have that turned on. You have focus point display to like see all of the points all of the time versus like just where it's focusing. You have built-in autofocused assist illuminator, which is like a little light on the front of the camera that shines out to help it focus if it finds out there's a lack of light or detail. Focus peaking, where you're actually able to see highlights of where it's focusing. And then focus point selection speed, like selecting those focus points, how quick you want to be able to move it over, especially if you hold that button down. If you want it to just scroll across or just go boom, 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 and kind of go at its speed. You kind of have to play with it. A lot of these, once you choose your settings, you're probably not going to change them again. So that's kind of the benefit there. The next bracket, of course, is going to be your, metering and exposure. So you have your ISO sensitivity step value. So third of steps is typical. You have easy exposure compensation, matrix metering face detection, center weighted area, if you want that to be standard, something a little larger, something a little smaller, fine tune optimal exposure. And then we have your timer and auto exposure menu here for customization. Shutter release button, if you would like that to be your auto exposure lock versus just using the back button here. Your self timer. We have power off delay if you want it to delay powering off. And then you have your shooting and display custom menus, which you have continuous low mode shooting speed. You can choose how many frames per second you want that captured. Maximum shots per burst. So clicking that button down, you can max that number out. Right now it's set to 200. So once it reaches 200 photos, holding that button down, it'll stop. Pre-release capture options. So it does have the ability to like pre-take a photo before you technically take the photo. Olympus had this for some time. I believe before Nikon did. So that's kind of a nice little feature here in case you're like, oh, I think I missed the shot. It actually took a photo before you actually took a shot. It's kind of interesting. You have sync release mode options, shutter type, so like auto, electronic, mechanical shutter. You have extended shutter speeds, something to play with if you want to extend what is like readily available. Limit selectable image area if you want to limit your options. File number sequence, I would personally keep that on. View mode, like photo live view, you want that to be on, or if you want that straight to the viewfinder, you know, however you want that to be turned on, if you just want the settings on the back. Starlight view, photo live view, depending on like if you're viewing starlight, I think it adjusts the dimness or brightness of that back screen. Warm display colors. See, you have view all in continuous mode. You have release timing indicator. You have image frame, grid type. So if you want it like a 3x3 square as your grid type, that's the most popular. To follow that rule of thirds, help you stay balanced, that type of thing. Virtual horizon type, custom monitor shooting display. Then we're in your bracketing and flash custom settings. Again, this does not have a built-in flash, so this would be in regard to any external flash that you add on that hot shoe. Flash sync speed, flash shutter speed, exposure compensation for flash, auto flash, ISO sensitivity control, modeling flash, auto bracketing order to, you know, if you want to use your flash in bracketing, flash burst priority. You have your you can customize your quick menu here. So this is your controls. This is any buttons you have on the outside of your camera, or any buttons on your lenses, if there are any buttons on your lenses. So you can customize your quick menu, that I button. You can custom control shooting. So you can change different buttons on your camera for your shooting mode and your playback mode separately. So it could have a function for one mode, or it could have one function for shooting mode and a different function for your playback. Oh, this one's a little blurry, sorry. You have your touch function on the back screen there. Your focus point lock, if you'd like it to lock on your autofocuses or your focus points. Reverse dial rotation, so this dial here, if you want to move it the opposite way to adjust, you can do that. A release button to use dial. Reverse indicators, so if you want it to turn it left for overexpose and right to underexpose, that's up to you. Reverse ring for focus, so for Nikon and Canon shooters, you turn the focus ring the opposite way to focus. So if you're somebody from Canon that's moving to Nikon, you can actually change that to something that you're more used to. You have focus ring rotation range, control ring response, switch focus control ring rolls, power zoom button options. So if your lens has the ability to power zoom, Some of them have that ability. You have full frame playback flicks. If you want to have that as an option. You can customize the eye menu for video specifically, so your quick menu. Again, so you have like custom controls just for video, focus point lock for video, all of these for video. Let's see, you have extended shutter speeds for your shutter speed manual mode, fine ISO control in your manual mode. You have your view assist, zebra pattern, limit zebra pattern tone range, a lot of customization here, grid type, brightness information display, custom monitor shooting display, custom viewfinder shooting display, and then your red record frame indicator. So you either have like just the red dot in the corner showing that it's recording, or it can actually put a red frame around the edges of the LCD monitor to show that you're recording as well. You have your playback menu. So that's going to be the next tab here. So you can delete, you can select your playback folder, so you can have multiple folders, playback display options, deleting pictures from both slots. You can dual format your recording playback slot, which is, again, different. You can dual format the slots together. Be careful with that one. When it comes to formatting, it does supposedly permanently delete your files. There's a short time where you may be able to recover those files, but you never want it to fully depend on that. Formatting should be considered that it is permanently deleting, it is allowing the files to be permanently overwritten, non-recoverable. So definitely be careful with that, but it is good to regularly format if you know that you have backed up those photos. You have filtered playback criteria, so you can actually filter what you want to see and what you don't want to see. Videos versus photos, that kind of thing. Series playback. We have picture review, so you can have the picture pop up on the screen after you take it, or you can say, no, I don't want you to pop up on the screen. I will tell you when I want to view the photos. After delete, so if you know what you want it to basically do you want it to, so after delete you can tell it if you want it to show the next picture or the previous picture, something like that. After burst, what you want it to show, the next picture. After rotate or auto rotate pictures, if you're taking it in vertical or horizontal, if you'd like it to auto rotate that for you, to copy images. Then you have your setup menu. So this is like where you like can format your cards like individually, which I highly recommend. Again, be very careful with this. Make sure that you backed up your photos accordingly, made sure that they're backed up before you format your cards. And you always want to format your brand new cards just to to introduce them to the camera brand new. Language, if you want to change the language on there, or if you accidentally change the language, you can always look for this guy with the speech bubble. And that is how you change the language back to one that you recognize. Time zone and date, monitor brightness, monitor color balance, viewfinder brightness, viewfinder color balance. You have finder display size, photo and live view mode. You have limit monitor mode selection, so you can limit how many options there. Auto rotate info display, auto focus fine tuning options, non-CPU lens data. So what data you would like it to try and record. Save focus position, if you'd like to try and save that from the time that you last used it. Save zoom position on power zoom lenses. You have auto temperature cutout if it gets too hot, too cold, that kind of thing. Clean image sensor, so it allows you to lock everything up, make sure that that's nice and clean. I would take that to a professional to get your sensor cleaned. I would not do it yourself. Image dust off reference photo. So if you are like overseas and on vacation and can't get your sensor cleaned, but you have dust on your photos, you can go through and tell it, hey, can you get rid of the dust on this, please? And the camera will figure that out, but that can get exhausting if it's done for like hundreds of photos. So get your sensor cleaned when you can. pixel mapping, image comment. So if you wanted to add a comment to your images, copyright information. You have the IPTC information, which I'm not sure why you would need that, but it's on there. Voice memo options, camera sounds, silent mode, touch controls on or off, self-portrait mode. You have HDMI settings, USB connection priority, conformity marking. Apparently it just shows you what the camera complies with, what settings. You have battery info, USB power delivery, energy saving, like photo mode, which is super helpful. You have slot empty release lock, save load menu settings, reset all settings. So if you're like, I don't know what I did in any of these, you just reset all the settings. Then your firmware version to see what firmware version you are on and if it needs to be updated, which you can always do through the Nikon website with a fully charged battery. Make sure you follow those directions. Then in the next tab, we have our network menu. This is where we can turn our airplane mode on or off. I've been told in past mirrorless models, putting airplane mode on can help you save a little bit of battery. So not sure if that's changed at all, but doesn't hurt if you don't think that you're going to be using the network options for a little bit. You can always turn that on. You can connect to your smart device, transfer pictures using the Nikon app, use the wireless MLL7 remote. You can connect to a computer, connect to an FTP server, connect to other cameras. Atomos, air glue Bluetooth options, so you can connect to an Atomos. So a lot of network options here. USB, router frequency band, like a lot of options here that you didn't have in previous Nikon cameras, which this router frequency band, like that shows me that it's going to have an easier time connecting to a computer. So you guys will have to let me know how that's going for you. And the MAC address. And then we have our last tab here, which is the My Menu tab. This is going to allow you to add and remove whatever items out of all of these menus here that you are going to regularly be using, but maybe not on your quick menu, that you may want to have access to and change instead of digging for them in the moment. So that's what's kind of great about the My Menu tab. That way you just have to go to this tab instead of digging through all of these. So that is the ZF. That's it. Naturally, this is just a straight walkthrough. So, you know, like I said, if you have more in-depth questions about things that you can do with this camera, if you have questions about the menu, about using certain settings, or how you can use this more for what you do specifically, and settings I would recommend, you can go ahead and have a one-on-one session with me. You know, that's a possibility. You just have to reach out. You can go to my Instagram, that's in the description below as well, to directly message me, or you can go into the contact section of my homepage here, and you can find my email as well. So yeah, I will go ahead and do more walkthroughs in this same fashion going forward until I figure something else out. But yeah, until then, keep your eye out for inspiration, Shutterbugs. Bye!